Welcome to Offbeat Frontiers, presented by KMFA Classical 89.5 Austin. Offbeat Frontiers brings you conversations with creators pushing the boundaries of the new music and indie classical art scene of Austin, Texas. I'm your host, Jess Griggs. Today we're at Jen Bobabee and Coffee House in Northeast Austin to talk with the artistic director of Inversion Ensemble, Trevor Shaw, along with the group's managing director and da capo director, Rina Saporsantos. We talk about everything from their individual programming philosophies to the upcoming Inversion season. I hope you enjoy our conversation. How do you, as an individual, refer to yourself within the music sphere? So, director, composer. I know you have many, everyone has many titles.
Yeah, that's not a simple answer. As far as Inversion's concerned, I'm thought of as a conductor for sure. But the purpose of Inversion in the first place was to get music performed by me and another group of composers, where we all felt like our choral music in particular wasn't getting out there enough, and we felt like that was going to be the cause for a lot of people as well. So I very much think of myself as a composer, but I also spend a lot of time singing, and like you, I'm also a trombone player. And it's a mix of those things, and I think that's probably going to be true for a lot of people involved with Inversion, and probably in our community.
Yeah, primarily I am a singer, but I'm also a conductor, I'm an arts administrator, I'm also a pianist and a teacher.
Another very easy question, obviously. Or what is your personal creative philosophies when it comes to art making?
So that's a great question, because I had this conversation with a friend of ours, Tim Takash, another composer, when he was down here working with us on another KMFA concert, the Helios concert we did about a year and a half ago. And, we said it's interesting to ask composers to identify as someone who wants to break down the walls or someone who wants to explore the milieu that exists right now. And Tim very confidently says he's somebody who's exploring what's going on right now. Okay. And I'm somewhere in between, I think. When we think about the composers that just took a sledgehammer to it all, the Beethovens of the world who just said, let's start doing something new, Mahler and people like that, and Stravinsky. And I definitely identify more with that second group of the let's break it all down. But I'm not necessarily sure that you would hear my music and say that's just so radical. But I still have this inkling of I want people to enjoy that process. So as much as we can go to breaking it down while people still feel connected to the music, have some kind of visceral attachment to it that's hopefully positive.
Yeah, and when you say break it down, are we talking about, tropes and idioms within the music itself, or ensembles that we're working with? What do you mean by that?
Yeah, all of the above. I like to think about music in terms of where it's being performed, who it's being performed for, who it's being performed by, and writing music that reflects those goals. I want to feel like we're tapping into something that's happening now, and sometimes that means, like you said, the musical idioms themselves have to be broken just a little bit.
Art should make people think and feel, and it should connect people. I really love the whole social justice aspect of art making. And, each person is made up of so many different things. People are very complex. And music, for me, helps people understand each other better.
So correct me if I'm wrong, so there's kind of the umbrella of Inversion, and then you have 3 ensembles under there, so it's Inversion, da capo, and coda. Can you talk to me a little bit about that and how those ensembles are separated, and maybe the various artistic visions amongst those ensembles?
Yeah, for sure. What we just simply refer to as Inversion or Inversion Ensemble usually is in reference to our professional iteration, which can have anywhere from 12 singers to occasionally 32. And those are all professionals, people who have much experience singing and have a willingness to do sometimes outrageous things with their voice. And we love that. And it's what makes us unique, along with the fact that almost everything we're doing on an Inversion concert is brand new. But Coda developed after just the first year of Inversion existing, where we felt that there was a bit of a gap in the community choir experience in the summer, and especially for people over the age of 50. So we opened this up, and it's been a wildly successful endeavor for us, and it still follows so much of the philosophy of the other groups. The Coda concerts honestly have a greater proportion of in-house Inversion compositions on them than anything else we do. So these volunteers really get to experience something special. Like this past year, we based the concert musically around letters that had been written to or from people within Coda. So they provided us the text in these very intimate, beautiful moments from their lives. I guess it was maybe our third season, we felt strongly that there were so many treble voices, not just women, but treble voices, sopranos and altos on our roster, that we really needed a treble professional ensemble, not just to use more people, but to explore that idiom, which has very often been sort of the aside version of arrangements that shows up on like Texas All-State lists, but not necessarily anything beyond that.
Yeah, so I took on this responsibility last year. My vision was to, because I'm Asian, I wanted more Asian music, as well as underrepresented composers. I just wanted to explore a lot more different sound worlds, and basically sound worlds that I grew up in. Also because these have not been either heard or performed by people who are trained in what we know as Western music.
Do you have any particular challenges in trying to find programming for Takapo?
Yes. Also because just like Trevor said, the whole treble thing, and I'm really wanting to change that. But we've also got in-house composers and other composers that we're commissioning. For example, I'm commissioning Lar Mercado to compose for this concert, and I'm really excited about that.
And I'd love to talk a little bit about the composers in residence, because you have a massive list of folks.
We do.
And that's very unique, I feel like, to Inversion. I see other groups with composers on staff, but y'all definitely have cultivated a list. How do you choose those folks?
It's quite intentional. In the beginning, it was composers that wanted to participate as singers. It started with me and Robbie LaBanca, Adrian Inglis, and then our friend Alex Johnson, and also singers that over time said, I feel so inspired by this, I want to start writing. And some of those people, like Suzette Emberton and Carol and others, have become composers in their own right, and now are working with groups beyond Inversion, performing their music, which is so exciting. Because what makes you a composer is that you're composing. Choral music, to Rina's earlier point, has all looked a certain way for a really long time, and the opportunities to do something about that without any sense of exclusion is so open right now, and I think that should be thrilling, because if the people creating the music look different, the sounds of the music is going to be different.
For sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And you've both kind of touched on this a little bit, but on the website it says Inversion's core values include ecology, LGBTQIA+ rights, social justice, mental health awareness, etc. Where did these core values come from? And I think you've kind of already touched about like how it manifests in your programming, but are there any other ways that it manifests in your concert presentations?
It's interesting to think about how those core values came about, and it's partly because of the people that founded the organization. Science is such a huge thing for me. I'm really passionate, especially about astronomy. Adrian is a great environmentalist, and Robbie is part of the LGBTQ community, and that was extremely important to him. And so those three things combined in the beginning, and something that developed over time that isn't listed in one of those core values, but is perhaps the one that we excel at the best, and I think we've succeeded in the most, we program more women composers than 95% of organizations in the choral world. That's also to say we've had trans and non-binary composers that have now been a part of that as well. And it feels like that is a place that we have done so subconsciously and now consciously that it's a huge part of our identity, and maybe a way that we should say a bit louder. But I think that's the truth.
I'm also, like, for me personally, whenever I program things, I'm really very intentional about the composers that I place in the program. And so yes, I do a Google search and see what other groups are doing, but not necessarily, you know, to fall in line, because I do not want to fall in line. I want to create, you know, a program that is exciting and engaging and makes people think. Sometimes it's a little hard because there are some composers who do that thing like so well.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like I find myself gravitating towards those composers, but also I'm also aware that I can't keep on getting them, you know, because there is a much bigger world out there, and you know, if we open up our eyes and our ears a little bit more, then we're able to, you know, to find those composers.
Yeah. I'd love to talk a little bit about what Inversion Cares is, and how did that initiative start for y'all's organization?
Yeah, I believe the origin of it in a formal way was a staff gathering that we had to plan out the season about 2 years ago. And it was me and Rina and Adrian and Carol, and we were talking about what the future looked like. And we have often, even before that moment, teamed with local organizations, the Sierra Club, NAMI, other groups that, you know, from a vast array of, you know, fields of causes and, you know, nonprofits. Well, for example, we even had the opportunity for people to register to vote at one of our earlier concerts that was about American history. We felt so strongly about it, and then there was this sense of how do we make this just an integral part of what Inversion is? You know, beyond doing this often, what if this is almost a requirement for every concert? And so Adrian has headed that up, and I think she's done a marvelous job of selecting nonprofits. So we won't have concerts that don't involve this anymore.
Yeah.
And
for the folks at home, can you just explain a little bit about what Inversion Cares is, just like what the mechanics are, like they've never gone to a concert?
so basically Inversion Cares is us caring, you know, about the causes that we believe in, that we think you should, you know, check out as well and support. Having Inversion Cares basically amplifies the voice that we're trying to uplift during the concerts that we do.
Very cool. And is it mainly like tabling out in the lobby with the 501c3 that you're
There's
partnering
that,
with?
yes, but we've also recently been talking about how we could do more for these organizations. You know, like maybe doing like a volunteer exchange and that sort of thing, so that it's not just, you know, lip service.
Totally.
That's right.
I know that's something that like the Chicago Symphony had grappled with, and they ended up like including a lot of their community partners in their programming, which is always that like fine line to walk.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. Very cool. Transitioning a little bit more into the 2024-2025 artistic season, I was interested to know if there are any themes that you're specifically exploring this upcoming season.
The overall arc of the season, we're calling the Spirit of Gaia. Okay. So this was the realization that Rina and I had this summer about how much we've been doing to promote women's music, and said, let's just be overt about what we're doing this season. So, for example, this concert, the Offbeat Concert that we're doing in October, features commissioned work by California composer Juhi Bansal, an absolute brilliant person who is definitely in the let's break the barrier down mold.
Yeah.
And is also just a kind, wonderful, interesting person who
Yeah.
has led this brilliant life and is breaking out in various facets of what we would call classical music, ballet and chamber works, and she's a marvelous pianist. And has also written some excellent choral music, and this won't even be the first of her works that we've done. This will be the first big one that we've commissioned. Looking towards the end of the season, we're doing a fairy tales concert that I'm very excited about. I think it's going to be incredibly entertaining. Most of them are the old traditional German fairy tales, and we're kind of lighting a fire under them and updating them, or just reimagining how the characters look, how they behave, who they love, all of those kinds of things. We're commissioning Suzette Emberton to write a piece for Here Be Monsters that ties into that and sort of a preview for it. She's going to be writing something about an old Norse saga that ends with the Ragnarok story. And of course, the Capo concert, I'm going to let Rina speak to that.
Yeah. So in terms of the Spirit of Gaia, I think that, having a treble choir embodies that already. And so I thought of the concert as a way to amplify, again, voices of underrepresented communities and the voices that are typically silenced, like BIPOC women, LGBTQIA+, and non-binary folk.
Yeah.
And so the composers of that are going to be from those communities, and I am really excited about that. I'm also excited about the fact that it's called Hear Me Roar, but it's not really a Katy Perry song that we're highlighting.
It'd be pretty
but
cool if you had
it's
a Katy
pretty.
Perry arrangement.
Let me think about that.
Just break it down, screw it up. That would be good. Yeah. Talking about the KMFA show a little bit more, it's titled Fire, Water, and the Air We Breathe, which asks the question, are we a truly important species or simply a temporary environmental disruption? Do you all have a personal opinion on that question? And where did that particular question come from?
So I'm the one who wrote that question.
Right. So I hope so.
Yes, and full disclosure about the title. That title was the original title of Juhi's piece that she's writing. It is no longer the title of that piece.
Okay.
But the reason it's still there is related to that question. Humans invented fire, and it was revolutionary. I mean, fire has existed from lightning and all of those things, but our control of fire is what defined us as a species from then on. But we've used versions of that ignition to do terrible things, like create atomic bombs.
Yeah.
And also to build thrusters to send us to the moon. So we have intrinsic value to this planet while destroying it at the same time. And the existentialism aspect of this concert, which really is the theme, explores our deepest hurts but our greatest aspirations. So what is it that makes us special or important? And then the question that's begged from that, are we important? We feel very important. We feel very self-important. I mean, I feel very attached to this repertoire. I can't wait for people to hear it because I think they're going to go on sort of an existential journey that I hope is a positive one, but it'll have some bumps in the road.
So talking a little bit more about the programming within that. So you have your commission. What else is on that program, if you could give us a little
Sure. Now, the commissions take up a larger portion of this concert than even a typical inversion concert, partly because Juhi's piece is about 12 minutes long, and I gave a structure for the composers in-house to write pieces up to 7 minutes, and frequently we say 3 to 5, and I wanted them to have just a little more room to explore the themes that they have. But there are some other pieces on the program. There's a piece by a composer named Eric Meyer that sets the famous text of Ozymandias, because I've always been struck by that poem because it's exactly what I was just talking about. This person who was such a famed ruler in his time, and now everyone goes, who is that? There's a piece by one of my very favorite composers, Florence Price, probably in my top 10 of composers of all time. Anyone who has not listened to the 4 Florence Price symphonies, for the love of God, go listen to them right away. I'm sure Diane Donovan and Sarah Schneider would tell you the exact same thing. I felt like her music needs to be heard like it's new music, because she's someone who, although she wasn't an also-ran composer in her time, and she was getting, she was an African-American composer getting her music played by major symphonies in her own time 100 years ago, which is a very big deal. But I didn't know who that was when I was a kid. Yeah. So I feel like not only does the text of the piece that we're singing of hers fit so well with this existential theme, it's also important to hear how old pieces that we haven't heard have relevance now and have connection to the new music. So this is a new initiative. This will be the first quote-unquote old piece that we've ever done on an Inversion concert. And it probably won't be the last, because Rina and I both feel pretty strongly that we want to start connecting the old to the new so that people understand how we got here.
Where do you feel like the future of the organization is going, or is there anything coming up for the upcoming seasons that you're looking forward to?
Yeah, I mean, the future is always exciting for us because we're creating it as we go. And I think that's one of the things that makes Inversion the most exciting. Yeah. Unlike many other groups where they're able to pick all of the repertoire 2 years in advance, Rina and I often don't have all of the music for our concerts in our hand until sometimes 4 weeks before the concert, which I'm sure would horrify some conductors to even think is a possibility, but for us that's exciting. We have to give up a certain amount of control to let that happen. But that's exciting too. And so what the future looks like, I think it's just going to be more of that, but we're going to start to hear a more diverse sound, the more in-house composers we add, and the more diverse backgrounds that come with those composers. But also, there are exciting things we've talked about, like eventually starting a music festival that incorporates both old and new music and helps people from the community and maybe even from around the country to get involved with this creative music making process in a way that's accessible.
Well, Inversion is going to do its first ever auditions.
Okay.
For our professional groups this coming November 9 and 11.
Okay.
And everybody is required to audition, even those who have sung with us in the past. And this is a great way for us to discover new people, but also to just make sure that the quality that we are putting out there is really high.
Yeah, it takes adventurous singers to do what we're asking for.
Yeah.
I would love to invite everyone to our Fire, Water, and the Air We Breathe concert. That is an Offbeat series concert at KMFA on October 26th and 27th. And we hope that you will follow us. You can find us at our handle of @InversionATX on social media or on our website, inversionatx.org, and find out more about the things that we're doing and what we have coming up.
Thank you so much for tuning into Offbeat Frontiers, presented by KMFA 89.5. If you'd like to support local music and contemporary classical music in the Central Texas area, please give us a like and follow. Thank you so much.